Hey, good morning. So, on the way to work, looking at kind of just what's out there, what people have a little bit been led to believe, and I've been reflecting a little bit, starting to kind of write down my story, where things came from, realizing that a lot more came from areas that I didn't really think of, or realize, or connect the dots to, and just realizing, if I knew what I know now, even a year ago, 5 years ago, how those choices would be different. So I find that really interesting. Another piece that I find interesting, and I've had some discussions recently with some friends on this and some younger guys too, is buying a house. I've already bought a house, lived in it for 4 years, changed jobs, moved, sold it, and have been living in an apartment for the last 3 years. And what I found is, living in the house, there was a lot of kind of unexpected expenses living there. I bought probably in the middle of my price range. I could have afforded or gotten a loan for a much bigger house, much more expensive house, let's put it that way, and I didn't do that. So I had a mortgage that was $1,100 a month, which isn't bad. And so I moved from an apartment that was $745 a month, $750, let's just call it $800 a month, plus internet. So that wasn't really going to change. Okay, so internet's the same, but I had no water, no sewer, no trash, and electricity was kind of minor in a 1,100 square foot apartment versus a 2,000 square foot house. So now going to the house, I had water. I didn't have a sewer because I had septic. I had trash. I had internet, so that stays the same. I had electric, which that's a lot bigger bill to heat and cool a much bigger space that I didn't think of. So you add kind of all those up, so go from 800, let's just call it $1,000 all in the apartment, to 1,100 in a mortgage, plus 150 in electricity. You got $20 in water, $20 in trash, $50 in so that's 1,100, 1,300, $50 for internet, for $1,350. What am I missing? So $1,350. So I go from 1,000 to $1,350, so $350 a month, and that's an average month, right? Average. And then you get to where you're going from $150 a month in electric to spending, over winter, you get a $400 bill. Now that's, and let's say on the worst end, your bill raised $50 in that apartment. So you're raising $250 versus $50. So you're spending an extra $200 over 3 months of winter. Well, so you're spending now an extra $1,000. More than likely, your income didn't go up by $1,000, a month when you decided to buy a house. Your income's exactly the same. You probably weren't saving an extra $500 a month. So now, while you can make all your payments, you really have nothing left over. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is in buying a house. Oh, and not to mention, any savings you did have got wiped out when you went to buy the house because you put every penny basically and kept nothing in savings to put the down payment on the house that you couldn't afford. So, and that's to say that nothing breaks, right? No water heater goes out, no furnace goes out, nothing else. And, oh, now you got to buy a lawnmower, you got to buy furniture to fill the house, you got to buy new curtains, new this, new that, new blah, 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 more paint, more stuff. And it's all the stuff that people don't think about when purchasing a house. Is all the utilities, all the ancillary expenses, all the crap that isn't really built into like that mortgage number. It's everything else. And more often than not, people can't afford it. And I went through that when I bought my house. I could afford it. It was great. I felt good. Had the house, had a new to me car, had all that, but I wasn't saving. I wasn't really doing that well in all reality. So my advice to everyone, based off my experience, the only time that I've been able to actually save money is by living in an apartment. Now, granted, I'm going to be back in a house soon, one that I did not buy, but I'll be back in one soon, and with that, I will be at some point contributing to the mortgage and effectively paying rent. But what that also means is that there are two people to contribute to the expenses of the household, which is also a different equation versus one sole person purchasing a house or a sole income earner purchasing the house. It's definitely an American thing, being infatuated with gotta have a house, gotta live the American dream, and that's all shit we've been sold. Just like 401ks, going to college, all that is things we've been sold to get a better future. There's so many other alternatives today, and really people just don't have good grasp on money, what it means, what freedom is, that they can, and we're not willing to live in a little less means, I guess, a little less status of a place. I've been living like super cheap. Thought that, I might get judged or not, or I might get judged for it or whatever, or that it might somehow affect me as a person. It had no bearing. Nobody cared. All everybody cared at work about was I doing my job, not where I live, not the size of my house, not the car that I drove. None of that didn't matter. So it's to say that really where you live has no bearing on anything. Still do a good job, make your payments, make your obligations, and save. And until you got $100 grand in the bank to make investments, and really like put some weight behind things, or 25 grand chunks into companies or your company or whatever, do that. But until then, don't buy a house. It's a bad thing, especially with like my generation, millennials. You're probably gonna buy a house, get married. You got to take on their finances, whatever that might be, student loan debt. So if you've paid your student loans off and you're taking on theirs, or vice versa, understand that, realize that, see what that is financially. Obviously, a lot of divorces are caused by bad finances, or not having enough money, or fighting over money, etc. So something to really understand and grasp. Something that should be taken into account when getting hitched. Plus the expense of the wedding, which hopefully you get some parents to help you pay for it. Anyway, that's my little take and rant on buying a home. Don't do it. um, Unless you can just pay cash for it and be done, and still have some left over. So that is my take on a house. Don't do it. Don't buy it. It's a bad financial decision. And especially don't buy in a market where houses are selling in a day and going for more than asking price. That is not a good sign as a buyer. So don't do it. Great if you're selling. Don't buy.